news. Hi, Tolagbe. Good morning.
Hi, Devoe. You're in the studio. Hi.
Hi. Say that again.
Missed you last week.
Happy birthday in arrears.
Tuesday. That's why.
Why? I'm not sure I signed divorce papers.
Look
I don't know what happened though. You know, we go where we are asked to go.
Yes. Welcome.
Thanks.
The Smooth Breakfast presents the headlines, the stories, the news.
Headlines. Read all about it.
In-depth analysis of national current affairs. Freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1.
Headlines.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's edition of Freshly Pressed 981. Let us press the news. Let's go through detailed analysis of our newspaper stories today. I'm joined by Devoe Okorie. Good morning, Devoe. Welcome.
Good morning, Lagos. Morning, Val. Morning, Tolagbe. Cool African strongman. Passes of Idris Deby.
Yeah.
Dictator over 30 years. How we fordo.
Tolagbe Martins, good morning.
Good morning, Valentine. Good morning, Devoe. Good morning, Lagos.
Thank you. Welcome. Happy birthday in arrears again. Tolagbe Martins is tolagbe.com. That's her handle. Devoe Okorie is at Devoe Okorie on social media. Engage with the hashtag Freshly Pressed 981 for today's conversation. We have stories to go through. To join the conversation, you can watch on YouTube. We're streaming live on youtube.com/Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Or just type Smooth FM Lagos in the search box and subscribe. You can also send us messages through WhatsApp 0809 444 0981. Twitter is available at Smooth 981 FM. The hashtag to use is Freshly Pressed 981. Devoe, let's start with you. The Punch newspaper reports on the federal government's anger expressed on the plans by the United Kingdom to offer asylum to prosecuted members of the indigenous people of Biafra and the movement of the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra. The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, made this clear in an interview with Newsman, saying that the plan was disrespectful to Nigeria as a nation. The UK in itself, if you recall, a few years ago, Nigeria had designated IPOB that was formed in 2012 by Nnamdi Kanu as a proscribed terrorist organization. But the UK said, in the new directive, it made a clear definition of what persecution or what warrants persecution. Your thoughts, please.
Well, quite an interesting story and developments with the UK government coming in and making some categoric statements on some associations or unions within our country. And in this case, the FG, that's the federal government through the Minister of Culture, Lai Mohammed, was reacting out of anger, actually, that the UK's position on granting asylum to some bodies, one proscribed and the other one not, were not in our interests, and that it was disrespectful to the country. And what did the UK government do? They basically granted asylum through their UK visas and immigration guidelines to persecuted members of the indigenous people of Biafra. That's IPOB that we know. That was started by Nnamdi Kanu and proscribed in 2012 by the federal government as a terrorist organization, as well as the movement for the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra. That's what we know as MASOB, started by Ralph Uwazirike, That was, I think, in 1999. I think that one came first. Now, in the guidelines, they stated to their decision makers, basically, when you make an application for visa either within or outside the country to the UK on this behalf, to consider those who were persecuted by the government, and that such people, especially where they were proscribed, were likely to be arrested or detained if they showed support for some of these organizations. Though MASOB was not proscribed, they did state that in the past that they saw that its members faced resistance, they were detained, some were killed, etc. And basically, they had a retinue. It's a long article. They had a retinue of information and history, a lot of which obviously came through petitions and all of that, one. Two, they've also taken their own notes of history and come out with their position. Now, the truth is, given the fact that it's the UK government doesn't mean they're right, okay? Nigeria is a sovereign nation. We do not act at the preserve or the express will of others. However, we, the people, are entitled to make our judgments as to who is actually telling the truth or speaking at the right side. If you read the article, I would ask many people to go to the article. It's found in the Punch. It did state how they had noticed that MASOB and IPOB largely advocated peaceful change, but on occasions their rhetoric espoused violent resistance, especially through Nnamdi Kanu's, Radio Biafra platform. So they've had a way of picking out their own issues and how they have interpreted it. And the Nigerian government did say that it would be calling, it may be calling the High Commissioner in Nigeria over this matter. Well, many people are reacting, while many of the social cultural groups that we know, Afenifere, Hanese, Ndibo, Pandef, that's for the Niger Delta, have expressed, the Middle Belt Forum, have expressed support for this move by the UK and berated the federal government on its own position. Whereas IPOB did respond through its spokesman, Ima Powerful. They thanked the UK government. However, what they needed was a referendum and not political interest. Like I said, we are a sovereign nation. We're entitled to make our own positions on our foreign policy, on what we feel is our internal security. However, this administration, like I said, so much information was in there. They even stated that based on petition, that they had seen that many of the members of these associations stated that the government, the administration was dismissive to its plight, and that there was a deficient infrastructure in the Southeast. A lot of things were being done across historical positions to marginalize the Southeast, etc. and co. Now, the UK is not our judge. They're not our court. We don't owe them a response, but we owe a position in the international waters because we are a democratic nation. We are a federal republic. And I don't want it to look as if we require foreigners to step in or to say something before we begin to act right. I think the country as a whole, the National Assembly, needs to play its role in ensuring that federal character, because these things exist in our laws. Yes. Federal character is espoused in this administration through the states' governments. Remember, we've been speaking of restructuring. We've been speaking of all the cessation tendencies. We've been speaking of all the uprisings that are going on within the country now, especially on the fault line of religion and ethnicity, all on the basis of I'm not being heard, I'm being marginalized, etc. and co. We are our own problems, and I think the solution is within and not by the actions that take place. But we must be mindful that when foreign bodies, especially most of the major advanced countries, begin to take positions, yes, sometimes it's political. However, we all know the truth amongst ourselves, what is the real deal in terms of fairness and equity as enshrined in our constitution.
Yes, beyond fairness and equity, they were prescribed by law. And that enshrined within the ambits of the law of Nigeria, the Federal Republic. Yes. I mean, is that open for contest?
Of course it's open for contest. Till date, many people claim that if you could prescribe IPOB at that time, that as of the time they were prescribed, they were not armed. They were simply seeking actual self-actualization, which is actually a right. It's not a crime. Then how come other bodies that have committed heinous crimes of killing people, kidnapping people. They're given political names as insurgents, bandits, kidnappers. Nothing is done about them.
Thank you for that. Federal government blames tanker drivers' employers' feud for fuel scarcity. So there's been looming scarcity around different parts of Nigeria, and not exactly Lagos, I would say, because the marketers here seem to be acting different, although some may not, some may beg to disagree based on demographic, right? Not necessarily demographic, but location. In this story, the federal government has attributed the sudden return of queues at filling stations in parts of the country to what they described as unresolved feud between petroleum tanker drivers and their employers, amongst others. There's talk that, or rather, it's been said that they're going to have a meeting today to resolve that. But how far do you think this will go to resolve the, long-drawn issues between petroleum tanker drivers and the marketers themselves, Tolagbe?
Okay, so we've been following this story,
Yeah.
Host Valentine, and what tends to happen, and particularly in a city like the FCT, which is highly regulated and highly monitored, is that the pump price is severely monitored, and any station that would be selling outside of the regulated price would be sanctioned. So I think if you were a fuel operator in such a place and there are challenges with being able to sell at the regulated price, what will you do? You just slow down supply, right? So that you're not going to stress yourself.
Yeah.
And this continues to be the issue, which is the lack of liberalization, the regulation puts the pump price under severe pressure. Now, in other parts of the country where perhaps the transport costs, logistics costs, demand, etc., are enough to maybe balance out the small margins, then people can continue to supply. We have always had disparate supply issues across the country. Many times, that's why it's good that you said Lagos is exempt, because Lagos is usually exempt from the scarcity. It's when the scarcity gets to Lagos that it's real, right? Across the rest of the country, we have these varying supplies. So the GMD has said that it's because of the dispute. He was specifically asked if it had anything to do with the subsidy, and he said the subsidy is a policy matter. And so I don't know, are we being disingenuous here? Yes, it's quite possible that there are a number of issues, but the subsidy and the price capping is the elephant in the room. So we're going to pretend it's not there, and we're going to focus, as we tend to do here, on we're going to major in the minors, right? So we're focusing on the dispute. Probably valid, I'm not doubting, but it's probably a contributory factor rather than the major factor at hand. So the queues will go away. There's industrial action. National Association of Road Transport Owners are complaining about their compensation package. The issues were not resolved until yesterday, Monday. So they say loading will commence. Dispatching is ongoing. The strike has been called off for a period of 1 week. So let's see, right? I hope we'll be back here again next week talking about the fact that talks have collapsed. So let's see. For now, we're engaging all parties and all stakeholders to make sure that at the end of the day, there is an exit that is beneficial to the ordinary man. Hallelujah. Amen.
Amen. But let's see. Like you said, Tolagbe, thank you for that. Messages here. Now, in reaction to the first story, Padansi sends in this message on WhatsApp. It says, "Good morning, Smooth. Why people get so sporadic with their negative reactions can be very ridiculous, as in the case of the information minister responding to the UK offering some IPOB members political asylum. We should stop deceiving ourselves that we love each other because we're just basically tolerating one another." And Tyre from Aja says, in the match between IPOB and FGN, it's 1-0. No wonder the disrespect and calling out the referee. Shegun says, I don't know why this reminds me of the reaction that the information minister had to the Transparency International reports. Even years later, still talking about it. But let's continue. Shegun says, I wonder why those killing police officers and burning police stations in the Southeast are not just reported but rounded or... No matter what your agitation is, this is terrorism. Okay, so Shegun is not been confirmed that they are behind it. There are allegations, but investigations are still on. Abarame Akarakiri says, good morning, Val. Nigerians must know that the Western world cannot benefit in a stable nation. Let's be wise. They have their interests. Douglas here says, to be honest, the last analyst did not do justice to the UK-Nigeria government rift over the asylum granted. I cannot fault the UK government because there is a gaping disparity in how the federal government seems to be treating various supposedly armed factions, or opposition groups in this our country for our own eyes. No need to beat about the bush. Enough said. Douglas in the abroad. Thank you for your thoughts. I would like you to explain further. JP says tanker drivers are calling out bad roads. Why is the narrative pointing to employers and tanker drivers? Dan says the action of the British government is quite commendable. The proscription of IPOB was made in bad faith. Why hasn't the same government proscribed extremist groups from the north? Barrister Dan Okuda, thanks for your message. Yinka Bolu sent in this one, says, nice one from the UK. The present governments enjoyed the same Western support on their way to government back in 2015. Back then, any small thing they had done to deliver speech at Chatham House. The US Secretary of State then met with present leaders and so on. When you sell yourself short just for a plate of porridge, don't expect to be respected. So let them sit back and enjoy this. Chris says the UK is by its visa policy subtly disagreeing with the Buhari administration with regards to its handling of IPOB and the Igbo agitations, in contrast to its treatment of world-branded terrorist organizations. If Nigerian government feels bad about the policy, they should treat all Nigerians equally, not just protests. Now let's go to tax issues. The Guardian reports, Devoe, how government denies sell for 5.26 trillion naira tax revenue. They state that the inability of the federal and state government to judiciously use the tax revenue, especially in reducing the challenges faced by masses and the organized private sector, as well as weak technical and human capacity, may continue to limit potentials for tax revenue generation in the country. How do you see this report?
Yes, numbers. Sometimes we don't like to face the numbers. And as the report said, it's in the Guardian, was coming on the heels of the controversy over whether the government printed money or not that was they were accused by Obaseki. Well, the truth is, the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, they did release a report, and most times people don't take time to read, neither to understand what has been said. 1 + 1 is equal to 2 and not 4. However, the reports by the NBS did, bring out some actual features, and I'll just go into a few of them. They stated that the IGR had declined by about 1.93%. Okay, that's about 2%, from 133 trillion in 2019 to about 131 trillion. All right, and this is coming on a further decline because it was at 1.69 trillion in 2018. So we've seen a general decline in the internal generated revenue. That's the money that comes from tax from the states and all of that. Now, they adduced, they also did state company income tax, which is one of the greatest contributors to the internal generated revenue, did drop by 13% this year to about 1.4 trillion. For the first time, VAT exceeded it to about 1.5 trillion, right? Now, they did adduce this gradual declines to, yes, most recently the pandemic, which took a hit on the economy globally, which everyone is aware of. Also the recession, as you know, this was our second technical recession, which the country had gone in and come out of. To some of the actual hard decisions which the federal government hasn't taken. These are decisions that literally put us in debt all the time. That's the basic subsidy regime across board. And I'm speaking to the large payments for petroleum subsidy. So what they shifted was from the direct payment of the subsidies to what they refer to as under recovery. So even if they do state that they're not paying subsidies, every time there's a shift in oil price and there's a differential, especially,
offset it.
Yes, they have to offset it to be able to maintain the pump price at 162 that you see. Also, the declining oil revenues that haven't enabled the country to have as much as before. To the debt situation, which has grown based on the borrowing. Now, they were stating, and also through some experts, that they don't really see any reason why the country should borrow if it has a very good tax regime. But the challenge with increasing taxes is that it's possible to raise over 12 trillion with internal generated revenue. However, there's a challenge, especially in the collections and the loopholes, and also the deficit infrastructure, which always act as what people used to question that why should I pay so much in taxes? How can you collect from me here and there? And at the end of the day, I don't see it. In general, and we're speaking to deficit infrastructure with social amenities, roads, education, health, water, which are the main things that make life easy for any population. I would say this, yes, Nigeria pays one of the lowest taxes generally in Africa. Income tax and all of that, payee and co, we're hovering between 10 to 15%. VAT moved from 5 to 7.5. In other countries in West Africa, let's use Ghana for example, their tax is between 33 to 40%.
Yes, but you say Ghana, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you seen the amenities? You've seen
no, that's what the tax experts are saying.
So you've seen the airport.
That there is a challenge.
Which is what I mean. Like it's not necessarily a problem of increasing taxes. It's about having that tax appetite, stimulating that tax appetite in the people, in the populace.
Yes, but that's what they're saying, that if the infrastructure is deficit, if people don't see where their money is going to.
Yes.
Look at our police. Our police are moribund. They're not operating effectively. If you go down into the operations, you see that they're not fully equipped, well trained.
If you go to the offices, you see the desks.
Yes, they pay for their own uniforms. These are all social infrastructure that should be provided from the multitude of taxes. Also, as you know, the number one problem in this country beyond insecurity is corruption. The country is still dealing with how, even when the money it raises, it gets filtered through various, loopholes here and there.
So would you agree with me if I suggest that the beginning of the solution is for government to conscientiously start working and put things in place, put infrastructure in place, fix power, fix the roads?
Well, it's an easy answer,
health,
yes. It's an easy answer.
And ensure that people are secure.
No, it's an easy...
And then you can now start coming back to
that is the government you pray for. That's the change that people were actually expecting when this government was voted into power.
Devoe has taken it back there. Thank you.
Just quickly, just to even speak to this tax. What's interesting about what Devoe, the statistics, is how VAT, which is obviously a regressive tax because you can't escape VAT. When you make your purchases, it's there. How that's gone up, and the more progressive taxes, which tend to be voluntary and need you to self-report. So this just speaks to what we're saying about trust. Nobody trusts government, so they're not going to do things that they don't feel that their money is going anywhere. They feel that their own local government. You're providing your own power, you're fixing your own roads, you're clearing your own gutters. So you're securing your own estates, you're securing your own
water.
So at that point, what's the taxes for? So
interesting, which is why when you see some of these road projects that have been executed, like yesterday I saw at Milverton. There's a road construction work that's almost completed there, and you see on the big signboard, commissioning the construction, and you having the details of the construction and the contractor and whoever. They'll write at the end, "This is your tax working," just to encourage.
Because they need to put it in our face.
It's to encourage people to pay tax and just to show that this is where your money goes, and that's to address that trust deficit that you mentioned, Tolagbe. So let's get back to the story from the Punch newspaper. Amotekun seems to have, there's an announcement that speaks to their success level so far, especially with the release of the Obadu of Ilemesho Ekiti in Oye local government area of Ekiti State. Oba David Oyewumi. They say he was kidnapped in his palace on Thursday. He's regained freedom with the help of Amotekun. Your thoughts on this and related stories, especially as relating the details?
Okay, so this story is telling us that the Obadu of Ilemesho was kidnapped on Thursday and he has regained freedom. So Kabiyesi has been released. We don't know whether he paid ransom, whether ransom was paid. He was captured by 6 gunmen, and the Ekiti Amotekun Corps commander managed to rescue him in Kwara State with the support of vigilante members in Kwara State and Amotekun operatives. Then the police public relations officer. So this is interesting because we're talking about Amotekun, which is the state-driven response, the southwestern Yoruba-speaking state's response to, the increased security challenges, and they appear to be speaking alongside the Nigerian police, which is the federal agency who is supposed to be securing us and looking after us and protecting us. Now, what's interesting about this story is that there is focus on one Ekiti monarch, but I have it on good authority that there's another Ekiti monarch who was also kidnapped and who even had 2 bullet wounds. So we're not talking about his story yet. Maybe they'll save that for tomorrow so that they talk about another success. I'm not sure. But I know that Ekiti in particular has been particularly under siege in terms of kidnapping and gunmen, and it has become a full-on exercise. As early as 4:30 p.m. you could be on the road and easily get kidnapped, and 20 million naira, up to 20 million naira could be demanded. So we really have to look at what is happening there. There's a famous quote that if any kind of unrest goes on for more than 24 hours, I don't need to finish it, but we all know what that says. So the point is, what's happening in Ekiti? Why is this being allowed to continue? This particular stretch of road, this particular area, this keeps happening. So between Kwara State and Ekiti in the Oye Council area, that's where they tend to be finding these kidnappings. They have someone who they allege to be the mastermind, who they say they've arrested, a Mohammed Bello, aka Yellow. But I don't know. Do these things, oftentimes this may be a straw man, this may be a minion. Who is actually masterminding this? How is the money being circulated? Where is it changing hands? Why does it keep happening? So we've had the Obado of Ilimashaw about Yeomi on Thursday. People are being kidnapped. So there is clearly a very active, violent ring happening. And I have under good authority that as far back as October, late last year, this has been persistent in this particular part of the country. So I'm sure it's of great concern to the Ekiti state government, hence Amotekun being fully, empowered to support the police or work alongside the police. But I think it's quite scary, and it speaks to a breakdown generally of the fabric of our society.
Yes, but it's also encouraging to see that the regional security outfit Amotekun is working, seeing that they are mostly or largely constituted by locals, right? Indigenous people around those areas, people who know who. Because there are certain locations, right, based on the size, you can naturally walk into a village, for instance, and ask, who is Tolagbe? And I'm going to Tolagbe's house. You don't need to be asked what street, and they can point you to the house.
So to echo your point, Valentine, it points further to the need for community-based policing, people who are familiar with the terrain, who speak the language, who know the communities, as you said, who are aware of the tension. Because you might get to a village now and 2 people are fighting, and you will know that maybe this fight has been coming since their grandfathers. Maybe their grandfathers used to fight. Maybe their grandfathers stole their grandmother. And that local knowledge allows you to be sensitive and to police in a more effective way. So yeah, this is what we are talking about. Who knows what would happen if these corps and bodies were better funded, better supported, and empowered. Maybe we'll be able to get to the bottom of some of these things.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Tolagbe. A few messages here. Let me see sent in this one. Falance actually from, no location here, but he says, where does the incentive to pay taxes regularly and concessionally emanate from when there are no evident functional public amenities to make people satisfied that their money is being used for something constructive? As Devoe pointed out, a country like Ghana have manifested results for tax utilization. Yinka says, Val, see here, our tax cannot work if we don't ask questions, and we must be deliberate about that. Are we asking these questions? We'd rather be our own governments, but like dig our own borehole, buy my own generator, fence my house, put my kids in private school, etc., rather than ask questions. I was in Abuja recently and I had a politician spec tinted glass SUV. Trust me, bro. While in the SUV, I was disconnected from the realities of Nigeria. Smaller cars were clearing off the road. Gates that won't open for me normally were open, etc. It was lovely. See, if we don't ask these questions, these guys won't know what we go through in the streets. Yinka, you're absolutely right on that. And talking about the kidnap issue, yesterday I saw a video of 2 men apprehended. I think they were saved by the police at some point because it was all going to degenerate into a matter of jungle justice, as they were said to have allegedly kidnapped a lady and her child, and the taxi driver had to intercept them and raise the alarm. So these are some of the things that glaring issues that we have. But very quickly to wrap up, Devoe, what are your thoughts on this story of the possible injection of some funds, about 1.7 million naira, to boost milk production in Nigeria?
Well, it's actually, they're trying to boost production from 600,000 metric tons to about 1.7 million metric tons. That's doubling it by 2024. This was said by the VP through the Minister of Trade and Investment, Niyi Adebayo. Now, basically, in the ERGP, that's the Economic Growth and Policy, the federal government is, they prioritize some local products like milk, dairy products, oil palm, starch, cotton, sugar, textile, which they are partnering with local industries, in this case, dairy, with the Free Spring Campina, Wanco PLC, to be able to produce, increase production, okay? And what this does basically is that it kills, it supplies the need, the dairy need that we have in the country, also reduces the heavy import bill. Like in dairy, we have an import bill of over $1.3 billion annually. Now, as you know, what this does is that in agriculture, not only does it meet the food security concerns, it grows the industry and also generates employment. And this is actually the real means. When you empower local industries at the end of the day to be able to do what they do, they then in turn supply employment to the general society. And I love this plan. I wish we could spend more time on this because it's the fiscal measures that literally change your country. These are where the fundamental actions are taken. I wish this will be translated in the oil sector through the passage of the PIB so that the benefits of deregulation do sit within the country. But hopefully, they're also saying that there's a strong linkage with agro-processing, which is instead of making Nigeria just a hub of taking what do you call it, materials, raw materials and exporting abroad, we can actually process them, not only buy for ourselves, but also make income with the export to other nations.
In-house. Thank you so much, Devoe. Keeping the money in-house actually good, so that we can have more money to fund certain key projects and infrastructure as well. Thank you so much, Devoe Okorie. And at Tolagbe Martins, at Tolagbe.com, pardon me. Tolagbe Martins, thank you so much for being here. Always fun.
Thanks for having us.